Hello everyone, hope you all are doing fine. This is Gautam from Shailaja IS. In this video, we'll discuss on some of the findings of the newly released report by Azim Premji University, whereby it has made a very interesting findings between your unemployment and social attitudes, right? So it's an interesting interlinkage between your unemployment, because unemployment is generally used from a skill perspective, from an economic perspective, from a policy perspective. Here, the working paper has tried to interlink it with the attitudinal perspective or the behavioral perspective towards the work itself, right? So we'll try and understand some of the attitudinal factors or problems which are giving rise to unemployment in India. And we'll try and understand what can be the consequences of this. How does attitude towards jobs have consequences at not only individual level, but also at a much larger national level? And how do we take certain measures to address these issues, right? So that is what we'll look into it. First and foremost, one of the interesting highlighting data that has come out of this report is this. It has clearly stated that graduates aged between 20 and 29 years, out of all of them, only 6.7% of them are having permanent salaried jobs. Okay, so first of all, graduates itself, the number is less. And within that graduates, only 6% or only 7% of them are having permanent salaried jobs. They're also saying among these graduates who are belonging to 20 to 29 years, only nearly 40% of them are unemployed. Okay, what do you mean by remaining? You can say 43%. They are having maybe gig work, they're having temporary jobs, on and off jobs sort of a thing. 40% of them are considered as unemployed. Unemployment means what? A person is trying to seek a job at a going rate, but is unable to find a job, right? And you also look at the demographic figure. People in the age group of 15 to 29 in India, who are considered as the working youth population, are numbering around 367 million. That is around 36.7 crore people. More than the entire population of US. US is around 300 million people, 330 million people. We just have more than that population under the category of 15 to 29 years. Right? See, one more thing, this data, I would not suggest you to use, for example, the 6.7%, 40%. If you are using this data in your answers, please mention the source as Azim Premji University's working paper. Otherwise, it can be not accepted. See, because it is not an official figure by National Statistics Office. Right? The National Statistics Office, the official unemployment figure will always be in single digits, like 6-7%. Right? So make sure that if you're quoting this data, you're quoting the source as well. Right? Now, what are some of the attitudinal problems which this working paper has pointed out? First and foremost thing, it has said that the head work or the mental work is still considered as hierarchically superior than the handwork. A clerk is considered as a much more superior than an electrician or a plumber. Right? See, and that is that caste-based occupational hierarchy is still continuing to the present day. For example, the physical labor works like electricians, welders, plumbers, technicians, all of them are still considered as jobs belonging to so-called lower caste people. Right? So the dignity of labor is still not there in Indian society. Okay, so suppose if I, as an educator, if I undertake some physical work, maybe like cleaning my own office or cleaning the toilets of our own office, or maybe undertaking a labor work like repairing our own fans or repairing our own tube lights. It is considered as like, sir, why are you doing it? That is not your job. Or it is not generally being accepted because still the clerical work or the mental work is always put on higher pedestal. They always say that there are people to do these kinds of work, so you don't worry about it. And that we witness from our own organizational circles itself. Okay, obviously that is being changed by educated urban youths, but still that gap or that old caste-based hierarchical frameworks is still continuing, whereby a sweeper's job is valued at a lower pedestal than maybe a manager's job. See, true, the two jobs are different, but we cannot put it under hierarchy. We cannot put it under you can say comparative framework. Each person's job is unique. Each person's job is having its own dignity, and we cannot put the work and the person who's doing the work under hierarchy. So a cleaning job cannot be put at a lower pedestal than a teaching job or a medical job, and therefore a teacher or a doctor cannot be put at a higher pedestal than a sweeper or a cleaner or a plumber or a technician. No, there has to be good respect for the work as well as for the worker. The dignity of labor is required in Indian society, right? We'll try, and there is also another argument which they are making, that colonial legacy of Babu culture is still continuing. If you have a government job, you are considered as settled. You are considered as at a social hierarchy at a much higher position. That is the colonial mentality which we had, and that is continuing till now. Where you can see this, most crores of people are chasing few government jobs, right? And that is somehow being enabled even by the state authorities, because they know that they're not able to create jobs in the private sector. They feed into this loop that government job is the most prestigious job, and therefore they push all these graduates who are coming out of the college to chase only a few thousand seats in government sector and waste their entire prime youth, which is actually the attitudinal problem. It is not a problem of skill. It is an attitudinal problem, right? And the class aspirations of the middle class is also that vocational work is seen as a step backward. For example, is a father has done till degree and is doing some sort of a clerical job, he would not allow his son to take up any vocational jobs like being an electrician or a plumber. They say that it is a step backward. So there is an inherent class aspirations to move ahead in to take up much more you can say mental roles rather than your hand skill jobs. Okay. Educational system also reinforces this hierarchy. Your ITIs and polytechnics, which are actually imparting this vocational training and required technical skills, they are considered as places for those students who could not make it to the better colleges, right? In fact, which is actually the opposite in case of Germany. Germany also, they are having industrial training institutes and your polytechnic institutes, and people who are passing out of them are given equal respect as that of an engineer or a doctor. A skilled electrician or a skilled plumber or a skilled welder is put at an equal pedestal as that of an engineer or software engineer or a doctor. That I have seen personally when I worked for a few months in Netherlands, where my professor was actually a German. And I was pleasantly surprised to see the kind of things that he used to do on his own. He used to fix his own bicycle. He used to take clean the desk of our any group gatherings, which I could not notice even in an institute like IIT where I studied, because that the social culture part of it is still there, where your hand desk or hand jobs are considered as a bit more menial. Okay, which is not the case in other Western countries, right? So this attitudinal behavior with the jobs is not only age-old caste phenomenon, it is also your class aspiration phenomenon. it is also your colonial legacy, and it is also your failure of education system. Okay, and what are the consequences of having such an attitude towards employment? Okay, so before that, there is also something called as familial approval as a career filter. Okay, if you want to, for example, a person coming from a Brahminical background, generally their family or community will not allow them or will resist a person to undertake business activities or to go into a creative field, right? So societal approval is another big factor which is determining how a person is going to view their interest in the jobs itself, and that applies, or that is more crucial for a woman. Okay, if a woman wants to take up a role of being a carpenter or an engineer, do you think the family or the society will be approving of it? Okay, so that slowly is our changing because of institutional push, because of social push, because of media push, cultural push, role model push. We are seeing women now entering into different arenas. They are not only relegated to pink collar jobs like nurses or front desk receptionist. We are seeing them occupying higher echelons of positions in government and in private sector. Your CEO of PepsiCo is a woman. Our president is a woman. We are seeing even women entering into armed combat positions, right? So that is slowly changing, but at a much more larger scale, if you view at a societal or a population scale, there is still that approval that is required for a woman to take up certain careers, right? So what is going to be the consequence of this, having such an attitude towards job when there is lack of dignity, when there is aspirational things? Your youth potential is going to be wasted on chasing your government jobs. That is true, right? How many of us have been chasing those few thousands of central government Group A and Group B services? 5 crore people, 5 lakh people apply for this or sit for this exam. And most of them are preparing for this exam for 3-4 years. Our prime youth is being wasted. Okay, there's going to be mass graduate unemployment because you're not willing to take up this vocational jobs, which involves plumbing or training or electrician or so on and so forth, right? Skill labor is getting, obviously, there's going to be a big mismatch. Graduates are in surplus. We're having graduates who are coming out of the colleges, but they don't have efficient skills, or they're not ready to take up certain skills. Okay, so there is what is happening at a national level. Our demographic dividend is turning into a demographic disaster. First thing, obviously, there is a failure of imparting of right set of skills according to the market conditions. Combine that with all the social attitudinal problems, attitudinal behavioral problems towards jobs. What is happening? You're having degree, but you're not having skills, and you don't want to take up certain jobs. Okay, so at a national level, your demographic dividend is turning into demographic disaster. Now, so what steps needs to be taken? How should we make vocational careers skill-based careers more aspirational? See, first and foremost thing is that if an electrician or a plumber is able to make more money than a government clerk, obviously people are going to shift towards a more certified plumber or a certified electrician. So we need to create incentives or structures in such a manner where there is financial incentive for people to take up these roles. And that can happen once there is a proper skill certification, proper social security measures, and proper integration with the private market force, right? Second thing, we need to go for rebranding of your ITIs and polytechnical institutes. All these industry training institutes are not a fallback option for people who couldn't make it. No, these are all specialized institution imparting specialized skills. We need to learn from Germany and how to brand them or position them as an aspirational institutes. Okay. Next, we need to change the curriculum at a much more foundational educational level itself. If you are trying to include this vocational training at the school level itself, for example, I remember our school teaching us how to stitch, irrespective of which gender you are. That is that such type of skill. I still feel bad that why they didn't teach us on how to operate in the real world banks. Because in the initial times, even though I cleared, you can say I passed out of 12th, for the initial time period, at least I found it difficult on how to interact or operate with the banking system, how to go and open an account, how to do what. Why are these things not taught in schools? Simple fixing of electricity, you can say bulb or your electric circuit board. These simple things should be given vocational training at the school level itself. That is what will make it more aspirational, right? And lastly, we need to celebrate skilled work publicly, like how Japan and Germany does. Okay, they announce awards. They celebrate these skilled workers. That needs to be done, and we need to change the narrative. We need to set certain role models, right? So it is not only at a skill level or educational level. It is also about bringing in change in culture about how these jobs are being viewed in the first place itself. Okay, so I think there is a very interesting interlinkage about attitudes and employment or unemployment, right? And how your caste metrics, your colonial legacy, your educational system, how all of this are cumulatively creating this unfavorable positions towards employment itself. Okay, and that is putting the entire nation into danger, whereby our demographic dividend can be wasted, right? So let us look into one of the question. India's unemployment crisis is not just structural; it is cultural. Examine how caste, class, and colonial legacy shape India's attitude towards skilled physical work. Skilled physical work. Always we associate skill with mental work. Skilled physical work. And therefore suggest measures to make vocational training aspirational. So what all we discussed in a video, try to put it in structured point format, and you can send it to me for feedback or evaluation. Right? This is my number. You can contact me on WhatsApp or Telegram, or you can email to my email ID. All the very best and thank you.